So you guys get the gist now. On this channel, I love to do a lot of speculating. On things that will never happen. Whether this is, again, LeBron James returning back to my Cleveland Cavaliers. Whether it's Dustin Martin somehow returning back to his prime and re-signing with the Tigers for another 3 years. Or maybe it's just my imaginary marriage to Monique Conti, which will probably, obviously, I say probably, what the fuck am I talking about? Obviously, never ever going to happen. But one thing more realistic I like to speculate and talk about on this channel does happen to be AFL trades and the upcoming free agency. Where will these players go? Where will they re-sign? Will they decide to retire and settle for a life of farming?
But farming? Really? Man of your talents? It's a peaceful life.
I don't know. And that's why we're going to be talking about all of that and more in this way too early 2024 AFL free agency trades. Whatever the fuck this long-ass Brazzers title is. I might as well just retitle this video, Rebel Redhead Gets Dominated by Big Fat Kid Making Online YouTube Videos, because that's what we really talk about on this channel. But in today's video, we're going to be going over some of the more interesting ones. And I'm going to be starting off with the Collingwood Football Club, who I don't necessarily know has been in a lot of talks with players just yet. One player who they are obviously very interested in, who I believe are leading the race, who I think I definitely feel like have a massive chance at signing, actually does happen to be Bailey Smith. It's said that Collingwood is leading the race to land Bailey Smith. This is being reported by pretty much everyone and their dad at this point. One other player I'd like to talk about real quick that I heard the Pies might be interested in, that was mentioned by, I believe, Sam McClure and the fuckwit with glasses on that stupid TikTok podcast show. I mean, shout out to them. I don't know why everyone hates Sam McClure. I mean, I know his opinions are dumb and he's a redhead, but fuck. Let's cut the guy some slack. He's giving me some content for this video. Anyway, apparently the Pies may be interested in Luke Davies-Uniack, and LDU might be interested in them.
But Luke Davies-Uniack is sitting there going, I could sign an 8-year deal at North Melbourne and stay and be one of the best paid players in the competition, but I'm always going to have that thought in the back of my head. Am I going to have any sort of success? Forget about winning flags just for a second. I'm talking about, of these 8 years, how many times am I going to play in a final? As opposed to, I could go to Geelong, I could go to Collingwood.
I think Collingwood would be an amazing fit for Luke Davies-Uniack, because
Same.
he doesn't strike me as the guy that wants to be the man.
I totally agree with that.
He doesn't want to be on the billboards and fronting the kids' clinics. And
he's the guy that wants to learn from your Pendleburys and your Mitchells.
Nick Dacos is always going to be the guy there.
Why would you stay at North Melbourne? To be loyal?
Again, before we get into Bailey Smith, they said that basically LDU to them, from what they know, doesn't necessarily want to be the number one guy and the main inside midfielder on a team. And if he can go to the Pies and basically be the big inside grunt type of guy who feeds the ball out to Nick Dacos, who's obviously a very outside inside midfielder, if that makes fucking any sense at all, and it doesn't sound like I have Tourette's, essentially that's what they believe he could do. The reality is, they begged the question on their podcast, what would you rather do as LDU? Would you rather sign a contract with North Melbourne that will be 8 years, starting on 1.2 million a year, and on like the 7th year it will go up to like 1.6 million a year, right? 1.7 million a year, which should be pretty fair for his type of player in 8 years. Or would you rather go to Collingwood on maybe 100,000, 200,000 less a year, right? But you essentially now get to be in a place where you're probably going to be much more happier. You're going to be feeding the ball to a dude like Nick Dacos. You don't have to be that number one guy. The pressure's not all on you. And of course, you actually get to win games, right? The reality is that if you leave North Melbourne for a team like Collingwood or a team like Richmond, right? The two big clubs in the AFL. It's interesting because you can always go to those two teams on 100,000 to 300,000 less a year, and you're not actually really making less a year because those two clubs are so big. The sponsorships and the of course, all the other stuff that comes with being a Richmond footballer, with being a Collingwood footballer, sometimes outweigh all of that type of stuff. The fame that comes to his name as well could very much set him up for a better life outside of football. So, yeah, it's a lot of really interesting things. I think St Kilda are interested in LDU too, which I also believe will beg the question to him, do you want to come to us and, again, be on similar money to North, but you'll probably win a bit more games? Interesting stuff, right? Bailey Smith is the other one that Collingwood will say, look, do you want to come to our team? We'll pay you the over like $1 million a year, right? We'll give you the similar contract to LDU, probably $1 million a season. You come to us and you get to be that inside bull who feeds it off to Nick Dacos, who feeds it off to Pendlebury, who feeds it off to, of course, you know, their wings, side bottom and Hoskinelli and other Dacos, right? The thing is, Collingwood have been so good this long without a real, I think, inside bull player. Jack Crisp has done a lot of that, but I still think, you know, they tried with Tom Mitchell. Tom Mitchell's done good and he's done all right, being serviceable, but I think they want to upgrade, and I think a guy like Bailey Smith or LDU could really help their case.